Hey guys, it's Julian. I wanted to record a quick guide for a build for a legion. It will be the Mech Legion because I have seen that many, especially new-ish players, have trouble in Classic to keep up in workers, and Mech is a reasonably easy legion to play, and it has great potential to get a lot of workers. We will base our build around the Pyro, which is an AoE unit. As you can see, it has relatively low damage if it's doing single target damage, but it's hitting the whole wave, so it basically deals, on average, I would say it hits at least 10 units, so it basically deals 10 times more damage than is listed here, which makes it very, very efficient, especially when you get a lot of sends. I will show the build till like wave 10 or so in a play versus the AI. Note that the build I'm showing now is, I will have a lot less workers than you will have in Classic, hopefully, because people will just income send, hopefully. And I will also just income send till wave 10, which you should do in Classic, in my opinion. What I'm showing you is more or less the build you want to have. Of course, if you get saved on from wave 0 to wave 6, you need to adapt a bit. I can't really cover all this detail. This is supposed to be a rather quick guide. As you can see, you start with a Pyro, you build it to the wall because this makes the aggro a bit more consistent. We upgrade the king because we don't want to feed. I mean, you can also snare, but just don't miss out on income, basically. So Pyro holds the first 3 waves. The first difficult wave is wave 4. I will show 2 variants of holding wave 4. One is a lot safer, but worse for the late game. One is a lot greedier, but better for the late game. So in Classic, I would almost always push to 6 workers, unless I'm being saved on. So I will push only to 5, because the bots will save on me and annoy me, and I want to show you the build rather, well, I just want to be safe, okay? So as I said, I'm income sending. I'm not adding for the Pyro on 2 because it holds anyways. And now I'm going to stay on 5 workers. You can always do that in Classic too. You don't lose too much with it, but of course if you're getting sends, you can also push to 6 workers, but you then need to adapt a bit for wave 4. So it's up to you. I would suggest to just strictly stick to this, what I'm showing now, for the first few times, and then figure out what you want to do and how you want to go. Okay. So no sense. Brilliant. In Classic this would potentially tilt me. So if this was ranked, if this was ranked, I wouldn't be sending every wave, first of all, but if I really am scared about wave 4, I can add a veteran and stim it. This gives me a guaranteed hold even against a 120 send. Just because I don't think you will be saved on. I mean, what I would do is I would put it also to the wall. I would put it like here and then stim it. So on this wave it's the damage dealer, Pyro will tank for it and we're fine. We can even add like a peewee behind the Pyro. Well, I hope you don't encounter this situation too many times. What I will do, I will show the greedy way of adding the APS here. You want to add it half a square in front of the Pyro so they share aggro. Against the Brute you will leak, but you will only leak the Brute unless you get really, really bad aggro. I think you can even hold depending on focus. But this positioning makes the APS tank for the Pyro and it makes them share the aggro a bit. Yeah, this will leak the Brute. But we don't really care if we leak a brute. The problem is that this positioning leaks 100% to a dino, so this is very greedy. Because this is a rather low income game, I'm only going to go 6 workers. I will add 1 bazooka here. You don't need to do it, but I just like to do it because I want to have a double pyro for wave 6. So I just add a bazooka and I need to make sure that I get to 175 gold on wave 6, which I will do easily. If I get to 225, I can actually push the 7th worker. But yeah. With this send, you can probably push 1 worker, but I'm just not gonna do it. I like to commit for the pyros and just show the build in its full glory now. Just one side note right now is that you probably won't hold wave 10, just because AoE is really bad against wave 10. But you don't really care about it. It's just 1 wave and you can snowball super heavily. And the double pyro is super strong from now on. Yeah, so let's see. I mean, these bots are just super bad. Usually, I mean, in Classic, I'm usually around 10 workers on wave 6 if people are constantly sending, just because it's a fat game and this is a bit of a starved game. But you still get the idea. Just make sure you have these units for the waves, unless you're being starved gigantically. And as you can see, this positioning once again makes my units share the aggro. So I use them very efficiently. And right now you can sort of start doing different things. You can either go for more pyros, or you can start adding a few tanks. I would suggest to add the first tanks behind the pyros, because APS and pyros and bazookas are ranged. So you just don't waste any damage potential and you don't ruin the aggro. I will even try to add them a bit further back. And I will keep upping the king attack because we will need it for wave 10. As I said, we will leak wave 10, but we don't really care about it. I suggest that you get at least 1 veteran for wave 8 because you're a bit weak on wave 8. Especially against like a big tank send, because then your pyros just don't reach the wave. So you need to be a bit careful. Once again, just keep income sending. Well, I'll just do this. The APS should tank, and then those should tank. Yeah. I don't know, this is a bit of a freestyle kind of thing. I didn't really spend too much time in sandbox. This is just to give you a rough idea of what we're aiming for and what you want to do. And as you can see, I'm 10 workers already on wave 8. This is a lot more than many newer players have in Classic, and I didn't even get income sends so far. I mean, I did get some now, but Classic games are typically a lot more fat than this. And this is also a tutorial on how to beat medium bots. But I think most people don't have trouble beating medium bots. Okay, so now wave 9 is approaching. We're super strong on wave 9. So we can try to build a berserker, which is our boss killer, to not do as terribly on wave 10. I suggest you do it, just because, you know, partial bounty on the boss. We want to add it as far back as possible, so as many of our units tank before the berserker as possible on wave 10. Double Pyro with APS and a bit of a tank is almost unleakable on wave 9, so we don't really care. What I like to do in ranked, if you want to play Pyros in ranked, is I add a berserker on wave 9 and I keep like 100 gold so I can get a fatalizer for 10, then I can even hold 10. But this is just the basic setup. As you can see, we're just absolutely destroying the wave. So I'm not going to push workers now. In Classic, I would just push workers like a complete, I don't know, worker button spammer. I would just push workers and say, I don't hold wave 10, I don't really care about it. Just because the snowball potential with this build is insane. And it's totally worth it to lose like 100 gold on wave 10 just to have one more pyro, because you can be undervalued for the rest of the game and just hold everything very easily. But just for the sake of it, I'm going to show you what you can do if you want to hold wave 10 or do decently on wave 10. As I said, ideally you just shift gold on wave 9. Like you keep 50 to 100 gold so you can get a fatalizer for wave 10. And then you're absolutely safe, because a fatalizer is just so good on wave 10. Maybe I can just sell 2 peewees to show it. Okay, I don't advise you guys to sell units. Selling units is always a lot of wasted gold. But just for the sake of it, I could show how strong a fatalizer is here. So yeah, I'm even above recommended value, which is quite interesting. So yeah, usually I wouldn't go for a fatalizer here and just leak everything. I don't really care about it, as I said. It's already tanking, just because the veteran is a bit too far forward. So I'm probably still going to leak, but I'm not going to leak horribly. Am I? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Easy. Alright, this is how strong a fatalizer is on 10. So, yeah. Like, usually people would, by this point in Classic, have like 3 or 4 pyros and just leak the whole wave. It doesn't really matter. You just need to make sure your king is maxed and you have at least someone holding. Or at least not everyone is doing this build. Because if everyone is doing this build, your king takes a lot of damage. Okay, so you can, I mean, spells, whatever. What you need to do here is be a bitch, make sure that your pyros don't die immediately. We are very strong here. Pyros are insanely strong on 11, unless you get like a huge tank, like a siege ram or a ghost knight or something. That's what usually happens in ranked. Huge sense on 10 or 11 to kill the pyro AoE player. Just because you never reached the wave. As soon as you reach the wave with your pyros, the wave dies. And yeah. So in Classic, I would just continue income sending now. Because I don't want to have this game go on forever, I will just skip one wave and send real stuff on wave 13 and probably win the game there. What's the transition plan? Okay, so what do we do for the later waves? Okay, we want to continue spamming pyros. On wave 13, I suggest adding a Millenium. And it's then all about having enough tank value so that your units can actually deal their full damage potential. What Mech is really lacking is a fortified or a natural tank. Tempest isn't really a tank, and peewee is just arcane, and fatalizer is a decent swift tank, but you kinda want to have at least one fortified or natural tank. So I suggest you use your reroll around this time and you try to find something that is natural or fortified and can tank a bit to replace your tempest with. And the honey flower is a great AoE unit in itself, so it doesn't hurt to take it with you. Yeah, wave 12. Okay, as you can see, I'm 135 under value. I don't have great tanks for this wave, but pyros are just insanely strong. As you can see, I'm just obliterating the wave, even though I got a send. So you can get away with pushing a lot of workers and not worrying about it at all. As you can see, 21 workers without getting a lot of sends. Okay, bots are just completely useless at this point. And then we will kill them on 13. And as I said, then start, after this wave, just start adding Milleniums, start adding more tanks, try to find the right balance. I can't give you like a complete build or rundown now, because this heavily depends on how many cents you're getting, and how big these are, and how good your teammates are, and there are just too many variables to discover in one video, and I don't want to give you the impression that it's the same build and the same thing you want to do in every situation, because you just don't. So, as I said, add a Millenium for 13, it's your best. Fatalizer is great on 13, Millenium is great on 13. But this is a bit of a sticking point, so you need to be a bit careful on 13 and 14 now, because your units aren't great there. The pyros are naturally weak on 13 and 14. So you want to overbuild a bit. As you can see, I didn't do it just because I don't respect the bots and I did want to end the game here. But for 14, I suggest you upgrade the Millenium into the Doomsday Machine, which is great on 14. And around this point, you should also stop pushing workers and just start overvaluing, so you can get like 3,700 value, maybe 3,000, maybe even 4,000 value for wave 16. And pyros are insanely strong on 16, so you can just, as soon as you can push double workers, you can push like 1,000 gold into workers and get an insane amount of workers, and just, you know, snowball from there and take over the game. Are they actually dead? I think the doppel is carrying. Okay. So I'll push 2 workers. I want to make sure that I still get the Doomsday Machine, and I want to end the game on wave 15. As I said, in Classic, I would just continue spamming Pyros, add the 1 Doomsday Machine, and then go nuts on workers after wave 15. This is how the, I don't know, very experienced Classic players get to their 300 workers. They just overbuild now and then start absolutely snowballing with the double workers after wave 15. So yeah, there's not much more going on. I'm committing for pyros. For 16, I would add like 1 death cap because it's a nice tank. But you can get away with not having too many tanks as long as the enemy is not sending tryhard stuff. Yeah, I suggest, like, after having like 5 pyros or something, you definitely should go more heavily into tank units. Yeah. I mean, this is one of my weaker waves with this build because the pyros deal magic damage and stuff, but the Doomsday Machine is great here. You can see how easily I'm holding this, right? It's just ridiculously strong to go AoE units. And it's very easy to do, as you can see. You just build an APS pyros around it, and then you just snowball from there. So yeah. Maybe you're asking, why are we building to the side? It just gives more consistent focus. Can you build a bit more in front? Yes, you can, but not too far in front, because the focus, like when the units come right out of the cave, is a bit more random. So I suggest you start building around where I did. It doesn't matter if it's like 2 more squares up or down. There's no clear this is better, this is worse kind of thing. And yeah, so I'm preparing for 16 now. Like, pyros aren't great against the boss here, but we have the Doomsday Machine. So we should be very fine here. And this, what I have here, holds wave 16 against a no-send. At least in ranked. In classic, you need to pay a bit attention because the waves are getting progressively stronger after 11. Like they get damage reduction and stuff. So you need to be a bit careful there, okay? You need to maybe overbuild like 100, 200 more value than I have here. I just don't want to show it in classic because classic games take about 500 hours to complete. And in a classic game, I will be getting 1,000,000 cents. So I will have 50,000 more value and 50,000 more workers. And this is, I'm basically showing this with the minimum amount of gold you can have. And this is going to be game. So, as I said, after this point, wait until you get double workers, and then make sure that you can push heavily. And then you can basically snowball the game and have 1,000,000 workers and hopefully carry your teammates. So, most important, start with Pyro, and the early game sticking points are definitely wave 4. As I said, I like adding the APS and staying 5 workers. It's susceptible to a big send. If you expect a very big send, just add the veteran like here and stim it. Wave 5, you're very safe. Just make sure you don't overpush after 4, so you get a second Pyro on 6. 6 is a major sticking point, which is why we want to have double Pyro, which is very safe there. 7 is also a bit dangerous, but with a send on 6 we can push. If we don't get a send, just add tanks. Double Pyro deals a lot of damage even on wave 7. Wave 8 is dangerous against a big tank. Just add more veterans if you expect a big send. And then wave 9, you start worrying about wave 10 if you want to hold it, else you just commit for more pyros. As you can see, I added a berserker here, which is shit on 9, but totally fine on 10. I mean, it's great on 10. You can be a lot undervalue on 9. There's basically nothing that can happen to you. As I said, Fatalizer for 10, easy hold, doesn't matter what they send. Wave 11, you're strong again, and you can just start committing for more pyros at this point, because the Fatalizer is basically a tank. You just need to make sure that it actually tanks before the pyros by adding some melee stuff in front. And then more pyros, Millenium for 13, just because you need a bit of single target damage against the 6 unit wave. Doomsday Machine for 14 is one of my personal favorites, just because it's really strong here. And then on 15, start preparing for 16 by adding more tanks that are good on 16. And I like to use the reroll around wave 10-ish, wave 11-ish, just because we don't want the Tempest. It just doesn't have any synergy with this particular build. Okay, I hope this was understandable, and I hope that helps you people. If you have questions, just let me know.